From up there. Oh, hey. Awesome. I was scared there for a minute. Isn't it awesome how the Lord confirms things? You know, I flat out forgot that Miss Peg was going to come up here and talk about Miss Edith going home. And I was texting back and forth with KC the other day, and he sent me a message that said, Mom passed. And I said, you know, I'm really sorry to hear about that, but, you know, trust that she is dancing with Jesus right now. And the confirmation was, with what Peg just had to say, I had no idea she loved to dance. She's in heaven dancing with Jesus right now. Wow, I am wound up again like a 3-day clock. The Lord has really touched my heart this morning. Hands are sweating. You would think I was going for a job interview or something. Hi, John. Julie. They're hiding in the back there. Good to see y'all. Can I share something real quick, something I'm extremely proud of? Yesterday, my bride and I celebrated 34 years of marriage. 34 years. So, yes, it is attainable. Now, at some point, TJ is going to try and put up a picture.
Oh, look at that.
I'll explain who that is in just a second. If anybody has ever sat or stood before a prophet, a true prophet of the Lord, that thus saith the Lord, and you were told something, and then you kind of, oh, that sounds good, and you scratch your head, and then you just kind of move on. Dr. J. LaRue was here about 7 or 8 years ago. And first and foremost, you know, we're from I think we're all from dysfunctional families, okay? We're all jacked. Everybody's jacked up in some way, shape, or form. We all are all jacked up. You know, now that we've admitted that, we can move on. We're all jacked up. You know, got brother and sisters, and they've gone all their directions and what have you, and they all have kids and what have you, and everybody's either fighting or not talking or something's going on. So that's when my wife and I decided I'm going to love her, she's going to love me. We got 2 kids and 4 grandkids. Let's work on that. Well, to get back to the prophet, Dr. J, he's got very dark eyes. It's like looking into the eyes of a shark. He's got incredibly deep eyes. He's got a deep soul. I rarely talk to the guy personally when he's been here, but he told us, there was a whole bunch of stuff he had to say, but one of the things he said was, the Lord is going to reconcile your family. And I'm thinking, that is going to take the hand of the Lord without no doubt. You know, I've got a sister in Minnesota I haven't talked to in probably 15, 16 years. I haven't talked to my parents in probably 8 years. Just plain and simple, a lot of crap. But when he said 7 or 8 years ago, the Lord is going to reconcile your family, I had no clue how it was going to happen. This little dude up here, the first time I've ever seen him was yesterday, sitting at our kitchen table. On the other side, it was a bushel of crabs. I'm sorry, somebody had to do it, and we did it. The first time I saw him was yesterday. I've seen him on Facebook, a few pictures. He is the son of my brother's daughter. I haven't seen her since she was probably 4 or 5-ish. She's now latter 20s, 27, 26. The dysfunction in all of that, it led me to believe I'd probably never see my niece again because of dysfunction on that side. But I'm here to say that if the prophet is a prophet of the Lord, thus saith the Lord, it may not happen today or tomorrow, but it's going to come to pass. That's 20 years, 22, 23 years in the making. He's my great nephew. And I didn't put the puzzle together until last night. His first name is Lincoln. Okay? He's Lincoln. Yeah, you know, as you all know, I'm a descendant of Robert E. Lee. His last name is Grant. Oh, wow. So, not only was I sitting at the table with my niece that I haven't seen since she was about 5 or 6, something like that, I also had my sister's daughter. Now, my sister and I are very close. We have a very good relationship. I saw her oldest daughter when she was a baby. Wow. The youngest daughter I've never met. So yesterday was an incredible family reunion. I got to meet Kenny, who is my niece's husband, dynamite dude. He's a hands-on HVAC kind of guy. You know, just love the guys that want to get their hands dirty and break stuff and fix things. She's got 2 other kids. They were just adorable, running around the house. They were playing with my 2 grandsons that are local. You would have thought they knew each other for a lifetime. So, the point is, be patient with the Lord. He is a God. He is our God. He's an on-time God. He may not be on your schedule because we live in a microwave society. You know, who stands in front of the microwave and says, hurry up, I'm hungry, you know. Who remembers before microwaves? I know there's a few of us in here. You know, you had to pull out the saucepan or whatever, put it in there, cook it, and you're 10 minutes out. You know, Gary don't know nothing. He probably never, he didn't grow up with a silver spoon in his mouth. He grew up with a cell phone in his hand. Ninth grade? Okay, well, you knew what a cell phone was in some way, shape, or form. There's several of us that even outdate me that knew what it was to not have a cell phone. And who remembers the clickety, click, 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 click? Who remembers those, you know? Yeah. Oh, one more little thing. Who remembers I have to tell on me, talking to my girlfriend, walking around the corner with this long cord, go around the corner and sit on the floor and talk to my girlfriend and peek around the corner and see if my mother was eavesdropping. I'm glad I'm the only one that ever lived like that. All right. Payphone. Yes, I have. When I used to work as a truck driver, you know, they had beepers before cell phones, and I'd get this beep, 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 and I'm 20 minutes from the next stop, and okay, I got to pull over, pull money out of my pocket if I had it to make a payphone to call the boss. Dude, what's up? Party lines, that slightly predates me. Just before we came along and knew what a phone was, I actually remember going to my grandmother's, and when I was little, she was 80. So she, you know, I do vaguely remember, that was down in Edgewater. They had party lines then, but I didn't take part in them. All right, that was all free. But that's my new little wingman. He's my buddy. He's the next generation. What you got, man? I can't see it. Pocket watch, dude. I used to have the most awesome pocket watches. Anyways, he's my new wingman. He's the next generation coming up. I am so excited to be able to spend time with him, and be there for him because my niece, it's awesome how this relationship is coming together now, and it just totally hopped right in the middle of my message. But I'm excited about being there for my niece. She grew up without a father. I'm just going to put it out there. She searched for him and searched for him, and he denied her, and then once, okay, I got a car, and that's better than having a phone. She had a car, she hunted him down. Please leave. So, for such a time as this, we're able to be there for her. She is in desperate need of family, and she lost all her family and it was still living. It's probably worse to have your family still living and lose it than it is to kiss them on the forehead and say, go ahead and dance with Jesus. All right. Try settling down here. All right, the message is entitled Bondage and How to Be Set Free. When I was putting this together, I was, the Lord will give you a seed, and Gary's going to learn about a seed if you haven't already read about it. The Lord will give me a seed, and then I have to plant that seed and let it grow and put a message together out of it. And I had two seeds. Like, okay, well, do I go this way? Do I go this way? Do I go this way? He said, bring them together. Stop messing around. Just bring them together. So we're going to talk about bondage and the pathway out of it. So you look up in the dictionary, look up the word bondage, and it's the state of being a slave. And in the little footnote under bondage in the dictionary of all places, it says the deliverance of the Israelites from Egypt's bondage. And that was just a little Google, hey, what does the word bondage mean? So you get into Webster. Webster says the definition of bondage is the tenure or service of a villain, serf, or slave. A state of being bound usually by compulsion, as of law or mastery, such as captivity, serfdom, or servitude or subjugation. Did I say that right? Subjugation to a controlling person or force. Young people, an example that they gave was young people in bondage to drugs. We don't know anything about that in our society, do we? So, what would you consider bondage in your life? Teenagers. I know teenagers think that while they're living at home, they're in bondage. I know I did. Rose and I went through a period when we were dating where we had these little code words, and I told her once that, I was in prison. I wasn't allowed to talk to her, wasn't allowed to see her. I was in prison. That's a whole nother story, a whole nother message. But the kids, living under mom and dad's rules, bondage. Do your homework. The all hated clean your room. That was one of those things where we just quit fighting that battle, because I'm not sleeping in that room. We'll just worry about, keeping your car neat, getting you good grades. You can live in a pigsty if you want. One of the things that we kind of lived with was stay away from that girl, or don't let that, my in-laws were totally encompassing with me. They love me, but some folks go through that, don't let that boy in the house. Make sure you're home before curfew. Make sure, and you probably know, Colby has his own car, right? So if he runs out of gas, it's his problem. If you were using the family car, it was make sure that the car has the same amount of gas in it when you took it. Don't pick up anybody on the way to or from wherever you're going. That's kind of a little funny. Yeah, kids were in bondage. They think they're in bondage. And then us, that's just our normal, how we have to live. But what things in life can be a bondage? What can you become a slave to? All kinds of things. I mean, I could stand up here and just talk till noon about different things that can cause bondage and not the pathway out. One of the things that popped out to me very specifically was relationships. Somebody that you have a relationship with is controlling. Somebody that you have a relationship that is a complete taker. I remember a guy I used to work with. He was a nice guy, very talented. But oh my goodness, this dude was like Eeyore. Remember Eeyore from Winnie and the Pooh? Man, he was negative. He could take a positive when, you get a free lunch and he could find something wrong with a free lunch. He was just so negative. I'm sure we've all run across a few people in our lives that somebody is just flat out selfish. Here's an ugly one, somebody that you could have a relationship with that is verbally, physically, or emotionally abusive. I'm kind of tiptoeing in this stuff, but let's face it, there's some relationships out there that are just flat out bondage. Rose and I had a relationship or two in our lives with some folks that they were like that. There were a lot of work. On the surface, it seemed like everybody was giving the way they're supposed to give. Everybody's taking part. But you wind up eventually feeling drained because of the relationship. One of the key things to tell you if you're in a bondage type relationship is when you sit at the kitchen table before they even get in the car to go home, or you walk out and get in your car to go home from visiting, and some of the things that have come out of your mouth, like, can you believe they actually said that? Or, what do you think she really meant when she said that, Or, wow, I'm sure that nobody's ever said this, but I know we have, wow, those people are really messed up. That's a type of bondage. They suck the life out of you. And those kinds of relationships, you really never know where you are after each time you visit. What else? What else can be a bondage? Things. What kind of things? We've had a lot of talk around here about drugs. That can be an incredible, life-stifling bondage. Stifling as in put it on the ground and stomp it out over kind of bondage. Alcohol? Yeah, alcohol is huge. I think I've talked a little bit about it. I had a little bit of an alcohol problem when I was in my early 20s. You've heard people talk about the roaring 20s. That was my roaring 20s. But it was in the 90s. It all started when we went to a neighbor's party. We're just newly married, year or two married, and hey, y'all want to come over for a party? Oh yeah, sure. Go over there. And I had only had a few beers in my life, nothing crazy at all, and I'm young and impressionable. And the people we went to visit, they were probably 10 years our senior, what have you. You kind of like people, try to like people anyways. And had a really nice finished basement, had a bar in there and the whole deal. We went in, hey, you want a drink? Sure. The reason I accepted the drink is because I was really concerned about our relationship. Not ours, but the relationship I was going to have with this new person. What is he going to think if I decide I don't want to drink? He lives right next door to me. That's what they do. They have parties. There's people there all the time. Am I going to be accepted if I decide I don't want this drink? So I caved. I took a drink. Unfortunately, my drink of choice became rum and Coke. And that bondage started right then and there. It led me into a decade of bondage. And I've told a little bit about that kind of bondage and what the drinking and carrying on did. You know, I was that close from being killed. We got a few folks in the house that know a little bit about electricity. I think Garth is probably the most qualified in the house. And you can probably tell me without even batting an eye or thinking that water and electricity do not mix. Okay? You know, I tried that. And God saved me from that. He spared me from ultimate doom. But yeah, alcohol is a easy, quick bondage thing. And I put this down and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I am so glad I never started it. Cigarettes. If you smoke, I'm not throwing stones at you, but I watched people over the years get ill. Emphysema came in. They tried to quit 1,000 times, and 1,000 times they started back up. A few more things. Pornography, work. You can be a workaholic. It can be that bondage. Education. Oh, don't be scared. Education can be a bondage. And I'm going to talk about that a little later on. I'm going to give you a little bit of an example. This one's near and dear to my heart. Hobbies like hunting, fishing. When I was younger, if I wasn't driving a farm tractor, plowing a field or something, I had a fishing rod in one hand and a shotgun in the other. The most modern bondage. Some of y'all are going to raise an eye and smile, but you're going to think twice about it when I say this. Soccer. Soccer is crazy, man. We had some friends that their kids were on 3 and 4 teams apiece. That they would leave Sunday morning and not come back until Saturday night. They were somewhere in the county or local counties playing soccer. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad that our boys took my trait and loved to hunt, loved to fish, loved to work. Our youngest son played a little bit of baseball. I played a little bit of baseball when I was young too, and I loved more of the sandlot kind of games as opposed to organized because it was such a time taker. And I saw a post on Facebook a couple weeks ago, or a week ago, something like that. Someone, and I think I remember, but I can't remember for sure, but someone was attending their child's last soccer game of the season. They were incredibly happy that the season was over. Bondage. And then something else, I wish I had the post and the conversation verbatim here, but it was a conversation I heard or had with somebody a little while back. Their kids were going to the soccer playoffs. If they win, we continue. If they lose, the season's over. Is it bad to want them to lose? It was kind of the mindset. Come on now. Football, Redskins or Cowboys, regardless, it can be a bondage. Baseball. And this is my bondage here. Anybody know what the word boat stands for? Break out another 1,000. I think last season, between my son and I, we spent probably $2,000 on that stinking thing. The year before, we probably spent the same amount. And he fired it up to use it this year, and it's still a lawn ornament. And it's a nice boat. It's 21 foot, got 150 horsepower outboard motor on it. It'll run like a scalded dog when it runs. How about things that have happened to you in your past? Somebody stole from you, somebody cheated you, somebody hurt you. This is going to hit home for a bunch of folks. Someone that you loved and trusted hurt you bad. Somebody like a father or a mother or a brother or a sister, grandparents, can't leave them out, cousin, teacher, a pastor, fellow churchgoer, or a trusted family friend. Now, if anybody's ever been hurt in their life, I have touched everybody's toes somewhere along the line there. And the sad thing is, that entire list of examples I just read, I have had every one of them hurt me in some way, shape, or form in my life. Every one of them. So what would you consider bondage in your own life? I let the cat out of the bag a couple weeks ago. It was totally not planned. It was the driving of the Lord. I was talking about an issue that happened to me when I was a kid. So I'm going to bring that up just a little bit more. Kids are gone. Most of them. Billy's in the back, but he's okay. He's just a big kid. When I was 7, and I'm telling you this stuff just to give you an idea what bondage is in your life. But when I was 7, I was sexually abused by a trusted family friend. And that was horrible. Naturally, I was traumatized. Incredible thoughts started going through my head immediately. Guilt and lies were the first things that flooded in my mind. Guilt and lies. What did you do to cause that? You don't need to tell anybody. Keep that to yourself. Don't talk about that. You don't want to get him in trouble, do you? And I was born in the 60s. My dad was a government worker, but he was a workaholic. He was a hothead. He didn't let the number 6 stop him, meaning the little plastic tabs that hold them all together. He didn't let the number 6 stop him from doing what he wanted, meaning 6-pack of beer. That was running rampant in his life. But I knew at that moment that if I said anything to my dad, because even though he was doing a lot of drinking, he was a workaholic, he was a family man. And if I had told him what went on, he would have hunted the guy down and ended his life immediately. So what would that have done? So yeah, I had all that junk going on in my head. And those thoughts took place in a matter of a couple days. All of that took place in a couple of days. So what did I do? What most of us do. And I'm not that particular example, but when things happen in your life, usually we suppress it. That's exactly what I did. I down deep in tight, didn't talk about it. It went quiet. So Let's fast forward 15 years. You ever thought you've dealt with something in your past, whether it was a few hours ago, a few days ago, weeks ago, months ago, years ago, decades ago? You ever thought about you've dealt with it? Or you have something to go on in your life, and rather than deal with it, you suppress it. You put your hands on it and hide it and forget about it. You know, the Italians, forget about it. You put it way back in the back of the shelf. You can barely see the top of the shelf. You put it way back there. And what do? You put a lot of stuff in front of it. You know, I got my kids, I got my wife, I got the football and baseball, and I got this and that and the other going on. I got church and all the people. Put it all in front of it so that you can't see it anymore. As far as you are concerned, you're safe. Nobody knows about it. Nobody knows what happened. It's back there. And this is where the bondage is really there. You're going down the road one day and you see something, and I'm going to talk from my perspective. You see something that reminds you of that person. Okay? It could be anything. It could be a road sign. It could be you're driving and you see the lines on the road and you hear a song on the radio and the two kind of match, and I'm thinking about it again. Or you smell something in a store or a restaurant that reminds you of what happened. The sense of smell can trigger memories from decades ago. Your sense of smell is one of your most active sensory organs. So we're all beagles. In one way, shape, or form, we're all beagles. But next thing you know, your mind is on a racetrack. You are clickety-clack down the track, and the gas pedal of your mind is stuck to the floor. Your heart is racing and you don't realize it. I used to go through this a lot. And depending on what you're racing in your mind about, I would get in a state of anger. Anger. And I could even stretch it out to rage, that I needed to do something. I didn't know what to do. But I was so spooled up. That's a new phrase today, spooled up. I was so spooled up on the inside that if you had popped off the top, a spring would have hopped out and went 100 miles. So when I would get like this, first and foremost, I got an outlet that I got to find an outlet. One of the biggest things that would help me when I was in this mindset, in this state of mind, was I would work. I couldn't have calm. I had to work. I had to be sweating. I had to do something to take my mind off of it. But before I could get to where I was working and sweating, my mind was active, and I was thinking of some sort of harm focused on me because of what happened. I am so tired, I'm so sick of this, let me just get it over with. Immediately following that, I was thinking of doing harm to the person that harmed me. I don't even want to repeat some of the stuff that I had going through my skull. And I was even thinking of, what can I do to harm somebody that I didn't like or didn't like me at the time that I had aught with, just to help with an outlet. Contemplated suicide. Just thought, okay, I'm blasting down the road 70 miles an hour. I hit a tree and it's done. Don't have to worry about it. They just sweep me up into a trash can, and I'll go on. It'd be all over with. I don't know if you remember this or not, babe. I was out in the yard working. We were in our house just a few years, and the place was loaded with ornamental bushes and trees and this and that and the other. And something had just triggered these thoughts in my mind, and I am fuming. I am under this bondage. I am fuming. And I was in my yard with my pickup truck. That was my favorite thing at the time. And I turned the wheel to come out of the yard, and this tree was in my way. It was a tree about that big around at the base. It was about 6 or 8 foot tall, beautiful evergreen tree. I hammered it and went over top of that thing. It felt good for about that long. But I ran over a perfectly fine tree. It was because I was letting these thoughts control me. I was allowing these thoughts to run wild in my mind, and it was an incredible, incredible bondage. But just keep in mind, this is my story, but anything can be bondage. It may not take you to that level, but anything can be bondage. This kind of stuff would exhaust me. It took time away from my wife. I remember her, fine, go spend time with the dog. Go sit with the dog. I would sit out in my yard and have my arm around my dog, and we'd just sit there and chill. He didn't care. He didn't know what was going on. He was just hanging out, and he had his master's arm across his shoulder. That's all he knew. I would get in a crazy funk. And the whole thing was, I didn't know what to do, and I was afraid to tell anybody, because if I had told somebody, you ever talk to somebody and you make a statement and you can tell that you have totally put them on their heels? They have no idea what to do with what you just said. Imagine taking this to somebody that's not saved, doesn't know Jesus, and you need to see a shrink, dude. I couldn't talk to my parents. I couldn't talk to anybody. So this happened when I was 7, like I said. It kept me in bondage for about 25 years. Didn't want to be around people. Didn't trust anybody. And again, why am I telling you this? Bondage comes in all shapes and sizes, okay? It can be a hellion of a cat that you have that lives in your house. That can be a bondage. Or the boss that you can't stand, or that the boss that can't stand. Anything can be a bondage. But the awesome thing is we serve a God that's an awesome God. He gives us a way out of anything and everything. So regardless of what the bondage is, you have a way out. So in my late 20s, I got to this point in my life where I started asking myself a bunch of questions. Well, not a bunch, but some, consistent questions over and over and over. Are you tired of this yet? Do you want to get better? Is there a way out? So the answer to that is in John 5, 1 through 8. Sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there in Jerusalem, near the sheep gate, a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here is a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. Talk about bondage, 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, and I had to ask myself the same question, do you want to get well? Now I'm sure that this dude was sitting there, laying there thinking, oh man, I'd love somebody to come up and pat me on the back and, kiss me on the forehead and pick me up and toss me in the pool. No, Jesus didn't play like that. In today's mindset, he would have probably rolled up and said, dude, what are you doing laying there? You want to get well? Sir, the invalid replied, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me. I keep running this through my head over and over. If you had something ailing you bad enough, I would have been grabbing ankles and elbowing people and, get out of my way. I'm in the pool next. Someone else goes down ahead of me. Then Jesus said to him, and I love this, there wasn't a take 2 aspirins, call me in the morning, call your brother over here to help you. No, it was a straight up, get up, pick up your mat and walk. To me that says quit your whining and crying and get up and move on. At once the man was cured, he picked up his mat and walked. So that was kind of a beginning for me. I was sick, I was tired, I was emotionally drained all the time. So you remember a few weeks ago or whatever, I brought the story about the howling dog laying on the porch. Does anybody remember that? 2 guys are standing out in the street, and the owner of the house, he's got a dog laying up on the porch, just whining and howling, and the other guy says, what's wrong with your dog? He said, he's laying on a nail. He said, well, why don't he get up? Oh, it don't hurt him that bad. Well, just before I turned 30, that nail had started hurting me real bad. So I had to do something. I had to get off that nail. Now, pretty much any time we make a change in our lives, it involves a decision we have to make. Okay, the joker laying at the pool, Jesus didn't lay hands on him and drag him down and toss him in. He said, no, get up if you want to get better. So we have to make a decision in our lives. Now, one of the things that is so awesome about God, and where you know things are authentic when He does things for you, is the fact that He gives you free will. He gives you free will. If the Lord had grabbed Barbara by the hair and drug her down here this morning and set her in that chair and did all these awesome things this morning, she would think, okay, she's just a puppet. But she made a decision to come down here today and sit amidst the Lord and be with the worship and all that, and she got blessed. And she knows it. And I know it every Sunday when I do it. When I make the decision to get my butt out of bed and come here and sit and be part of the worship and part of the message, I get blessed. That's free. That's not part of the message. So you have to choose His way. He doesn't dictate what we do. He gives us the choice. And here's a little matrix plug. You take the red pill or the blue pill. Brandon got it. Take the red pill or the blue pill. Do I want to stay where I am, or do I want to move on to something better? And the question that goes behind that is, who's a better choice to get me there? Me or God? For me, I don't choose me. I know I'm jacked up. So there were a few things that I had to do, choices I had to make to get delivered from the bondage. First and foremost, when I was 17, 10 years later, I accepted Jesus as Lord and Savior of my life. That was an incredible day, a day that I will remember until I die. But that was the very beginning of the exodus of bondage. Now, after being saved for a while, the memories came back. Bondage was still there. Why? I guess the only way I can really answer that for me is so many years later, the enemy knew more than I did and was afraid of my future. He started throwing all he could at me. He wanted to get me off my game. He wanted to fix my focus elsewhere. Secondly, I had to talk to somebody. I had this big, hairy gorilla on my back, and I had to do something with it. I was just sick to my gizzard. I couldn't do anything. Didn't matter where I went, who I was around. In short order, I was so messed up in the head, people couldn't be around me. I couldn't be around people. So I was in a parking lot at 1 a.m. in a Denny's, spilling my guts to someone that proved to me, and hear this, someone that proved to me that I could trust them. Again, that proved to me that I could trust them. Not a used car salesman kind of a trust, a show me kind of a trust. There's a message in that, opinions are like belly buttons. Everybody reach down here, you got one, okay? Everybody's got an opinion, everybody's got a belly button, we all got one. But if you've got a monkey on your back or a big hairy gorilla or whatever, and you decide you need to talk to somebody, make sure that you see some good fruit on the tree before you go picking from that tree. Okay? Don't just pick the easiest person. You got to have good fruit on your tree before you can start picking. So the person I was talking to said, hey, you got to ask the Lord for forgiveness. I'm thinking, dude, are you crazy? I'm the one that got hurt. I'm the one that was assaulted. I'm the one that was harmed here. He didn't expound on it, but I did it out of obedience. And later on, when I did that, I realized that, the Holy Spirit dropped it on me that I should have acted sooner. I should have acted sooner. I should have acted on the obedience of the Lord. The Lord says, forgive those people. And I didn't until a long time. So I asked for forgiveness. And I felt good when I asked him for forgiveness. Then this person said, you have to forgive the person that harmed you. And there's a big misconception about forgiveness. They think that, you need to forgive him. That takes the handcuffs off and lets him go free. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The forgiveness is, just kind of envision this. There's a great big shark's hook in your back. That's the unforgiveness. That's the bondage. You reach around and, okay, I forgive that person. You pull that hook out of your back so that you're no longer in bondage. You are set free. That person still has to answer, just like us. Anybody sitting in here, when you stand before the Lord Almighty, you're going to have this video played out. of everything you've ever said, everything you've ever done, your entire life. You're going to have to give an account for everything you've said, everything you've done. Good, bad, ugly, all of it. So when I forgave this person, it was like I had a car parked on my shoulders and the car was gone. I had an incredible sense of freedom. Anybody remember the boy in the plastic bubble? A couple of you? Yeah. Remember at the end of the movie where he was like, I'm sick of this bondage. I'm sick of just being in this thing. He's standing at the air zone and he's taking a few deep breaths and he just says, you know what? I want freedom. And he walks out and he's gone. And he's out living life and he's out there doing whatever God has for him. If it's a long life, a short life, he is no longer in bondage. And that's where I was. And still, I wasn't in bondage, but the thoughts didn't go away. Thoughts didn't go away. You're thinking, dude, what are you talking about? You're supposed to be speaking some victory here, and you're still living with this junk. So this is where the Lord was really working on me. He said, step 3. I had to turn this harm into a tool for the Lord. For the glory of the Lord. I had to tell people about it. By this time, I was in my early 40s. I remember something Rusty has said a bunch of times. And I'm going to paraphrase it, I don't remember exactly how he said it, but we make a mess of our lives, and God takes that mess and turns it into a message. He turns that mess into a message. I was supposed to start telling the story to help people out of similar circumstances. I remember when I first took that deep breath and let it come out, I hadn't told my wife, my best friend in my entire life, I hadn't even told her anything that had happened. But sitting at my kitchen table one day, I've got this person telling me, woe is me, I got this going on, I got that going on, I've been abused and so on and so forth. But you don't understand. I'm like, oh, but yes, I do. Been there, done that, got the T-shirt, got the scars to prove it, sitting in the bottom of the boat in Jaws. Oh, I got bit by that shark. No, I got that. I was there. We often think about, okay, well, why does God let stuff happen? Why? Innocent people, so on and so forth. God doesn't allow you to go through things because he doesn't like you or doesn't care. Not at all. He allows you to go through things for someone else, so that you can help someone else. Use my wife, for example. We have been in the church 25 years. We've been leadership, eldership, now pastors of the house. She has had 3 major knee surgeries, 2 replacements and 1 revision. We went through a period where elders praying for us, people coming up and praying, laying hands on her, the oil, the whole deal. One of the Lord's anointed, why shouldn't they get healed? Okay? By all means, she should, in my mind's eye, sure, she should have been healed. That's my wife. I pray for her here at home while I'm going up and down the road. Nothing. We had to go through the surgical procedures. But the cherry in this situation is when we had people coming up to her and saying, when you were going through that, I was so encouraged because you never wavered from your faith. I was so blessed by your stick-to-itiveness, by your tenacity. I was so blessed by that. I just love the faith. We heard those stories all the time. So, he lets us go through things, but not because he doesn't like us. It's because You have a testimony now, but what have I said before? Your testimony is not yours to keep. You need to give it to somebody. Step 4. I got to hurry up. Step 4. One of the hardest things, and I still talk about it, how hard it is and how I'm totally working on it, is learning to take every thought captive. 2 Corinthians, I'm going to bounce down to chapter 10, verse 5. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. We take every thought captive to make it obedient to Christ. Remember that. And we'll be ready to punish every act of disobedience once your obedience is complete. Like I said, the stuff didn't go away. The thoughts were continually there. Quick story. One of my favorite fragrances in nature is honeysuckle. I love the smell of honeysuckle. My favorite time of year is in the spring. After the thaw has come, you smell honeysuckle in the air and you can hear the peeper frogs. When you go by this little low-lying area, the tree frogs, I love that. Unfortunately, that fragrance and that sound, one of my favorite things in life, takes me back to when I was 7. I had to start taking these thoughts captive, because every time I would hear something or smell something to remind me, so easy to get in that fit of rage and I'm 100 miles an hour heading in the wrong direction. Bring the thoughts under submission, under the obedience of Christ, not under the obedience of the enemy. When you're thinking about junk you're not supposed to be thinking about, you're under submission of the enemy's thoughts. And that's where he attacks us the quickest and easiest, is in your thoughts. He just sends a little fiery dart your way. It can be 99.9% truth, but it's like those poison darts that they use over in the third and fourth world countries. It looks just like an arrow or a dart, but it's got a little poison that it's laced with. And that's what the enemy does. And when those thoughts come along, most of us don't even pause to think about it. We just let them roll. It could be something as simple as, you didn't pick your underdrawers up off the floor, dude. Come on, I told you 1,000 times. And then you're all upset because she's picking on you. Or something that's kind of hit home for a few people lately is, I'm not a very good mother. I'm not a very good father. He doesn't mind tossing those things in. He don't care about you or your kids or anybody that looks like your kids. But you got to ask yourself these questions. What am I thinking about? And this is where you can take it into the obedience. Is what I'm thinking honoring God? Is what I'm thinking going to bring glory to Him? Is it constructive or destructive? Where are these thoughts going? I like how when Jesus was in the desert for 40 days, I was going to say 40 years, He wasn't there for 40 years, it was 40 days. And the enemy was out there just beating Him down everywhere He turned. And the enemy thought he was slick. He really thought he was slick, and he was whipping out scripture on Jesus. But what did Jesus do? He answered him right back with the same scripture, the same Bible. Matthew 4. I'm going to try and get through this real quick. After fasting 40, this verse 2, after fasting 40 days and nights, He was hungry. the tempter came to him, and that'd be the devil for you that don't know who the tempter is. If you're the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. Dude, I know you're hungry. You can do it. Tell them, turn them into bread. But what did Jesus do? No way, man. It's written. Man shall not live on bread alone, but every word that comes from the mouth of God. And then you skip down a little ways in verse 6. If you're the Son of God, he said, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and they will He will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. Jesus answered and said, it is also written, pow, pow. Do not put the Lord your God to the test. And afterwards, Jesus got tired of him and said, away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. Serve him only. And when the word of the Lord is spoken around the enemy, he has to what? Flee. So, in all of this, when you get these crazy thoughts, turn the table on him. Pull out some scripture. Jesus didn't entertain what the devil had to say. You can always find a cherry in any situation. Anybody, I know Rusty, he's a carpenter. A few of you guys know how to swing a hammer. You ever been working on a wall, building a wall, and you reach in your pouch and you don't have any nails in the pouch, but you got a few bent ones on the floor? You can take a negative and turn it into a positive. You can go over and grab that bent nail, take it over to a hard surface with another hard surface, and straighten it out and use it. So you can take a negative and you can turn it into a positive. And if you don't think so, little Johnny is in the school sitting with, little Johnny's mom is in school sitting with Johnny's teacher. Johnny's teacher says, ma'am, Johnny is failing in school. And she just gets a smile on her face. So she repeats herself, ma'am, did you hear me? Little Johnny is failing in school. How can you smile? She said, well, one thing's for sure. He ain't cheating. So you can find a cherry in any situation. Something else I had to learn, and I got to step on the gas here, I'm way behind, was I had to stop being in control. And this is where you need to take all that stuff you've learned and that you've read from the Bible, you've heard from the pulpit, and so on and so forth, heard it on the Christian radio and the Christian speakers, put it into play. It's where you apply that living from the inside out. And I mentioned education earlier. Education can be a bondage. And please tiptoe with me. This is going to be a sensitive situation because we've got some highly educated people in this place. We've got engineers and pilots and everything. To do your job, you need to have that education. You need to have that education to function in society. We need to have a job to provide for the family and so on and so forth. But to have that job, you got to have some kind of something up in that noggin of yours. But if education isn't used properly and it isn't submitted under the authority of God, it can be a bondage. It can keep you from growing because your intellect will tell you, no, this is the way we're supposed to go. But the Bible says something different. A real quick story about education, training. I read a story years ago. I'm going to paraphrase it for the sake of time. there was a cop out on the street, and he was in this gun battle with a bad guy. They exchanged some fire. The cop got killed. This is a true story. They took the dash cam video and examined it later on, just to find what happened to this guy. He's a marksman, he's a sharpshooter, he's this, he's that. And somebody finally spotted the problem. Now, when they're in training, it's, however many, whatever gun you got, however many shots, bang, 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 bang. Okay, I'm done. Let me police my rounds, meaning I'm going to pick up my empties. Part of training. Bang, 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 bang. Let me pick up my empty rounds. Part of training. It was muscle memory. They spotted in that firefight that when he emptied his weapon at the enemy, he paused to pick up his rounds. Empty rounds. Meaning your training, your education can hinder you if you're not careful. Yes, they immediately changed their training. At the end of the day, somebody else was going around and sweeping up the empties. Now, someone else, Justine isn't here, but I'm going to use her real quick. She's a nurse practitioner in the psychiatric field. Now, I'm sure anybody that knows anything about psychiatry, their first and foremost thought is not Bible when they're training their people. Okay? They're digging way into the psyche, the medical field. But you know what she does? She's always talking to her patients about God, about Jesus, about their relationship with the Lord. So she doesn't let the training she has get in the way of doing what she's supposed to do. Again, by no means I am not bashing education. A mind is a terrible thing to waste. I forget who said that, but I thoroughly believe that. Go get all the education you can get. Learn anything you can. Just do yourself one favor. Make sure that you take that education and baptize it. We're habitually wanting to be in the driver's seat all the time, but one of the scriptures that really helped me over the past couple of years is 1 Peter 5, 6, and 7. Cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you. Anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. King James says, cast all your cares upon Him, for He cares for you. Careth. NLT says, give all your worries and cares to God, for He cares about you. The Amplified, I got to read this one quick. Casting all your cares, all your anxieties, and all your worries, and all your concerns, once and for all, on Him who cares about you with deepest affection and watches over you very carefully. I've told you about some of the things that went on in my life, our lives, with the church and what have you, and I was worried, I was concerned, I was sweating blood, and so on and so forth. But I realized that I could not carry that stuff. So I read a teaching by this guy named Rick Renner. He's got an incredible ministry. He left the United States and went to Russia, and he's got this incredible church over there. He's incredible. I don't know his real background as far as education, but he talks like he is a language genius. But he was talking about the casting your cares upon the Lord. And one of the little things that I took out of his teaching was, we're not designed to carry the burden of worry, fretting, and anxiety. This load is simply too much for the human body and the central nervous system to tolerate. We may be able to manage it for a while, but eventually the physical body and mind will begin to break down under this type of perpetual pressure. In fact, the medical world has confirmed that the major source of sickness in the Western Hemisphere is stress and pressure. Just found out yesterday that my early 30s nephew, picture of health, had a heart attack. His heart attack was based on stress. He's carrying something he shouldn't. Man was simply not fashioned to carry pressure, stresses, anxieties, and worries. This is the reason his body breaks down when it undergoes these negative influences for too long. So, I'm actually a lot closer than I thought. So the Lord doesn't want you to carry things you're not supposed to. Real quick, my wife and I, married 34 years. We're best friends. We work together well. I put a almost 900 square foot addition on the house, and she was my wingwoman. She was all right with holding drywall or nailing while I was holding or whatever. We did it all together. We have a great relationship. We're the best of friends. She's a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home grandmama. She loves to contribute to the family in any way she can. She's anointed to our finances. I'm not. I have zero patience for it and am horrible at it. However, I have control of millions of dollars with the Postal Service. I deal with the budget on that side. I can do it, but I'm not supposed to. She is. And I've also told her that there's things in the relationship that I'm supposed to carry and not her. I'm built to carry the load. She does a tremendous job with our finances, but I carry the burden of it. If there's a mistake, if there's an issue, if we fall short, I don't point fingers at her. It's my responsibility. I carry that. She can care about the finances. She can show concern for our finances. She can tell me what we're going to be short if I keep spending money. But the burden belongs to me. You obviously have no idea what I'm talking about, Rick, right? By casting that care upon me, I can carry it because I'm supposed to. Okay? I'm supposed to carry it. But what does that do for her? That gives her freedom. No more shackles, no more chains, no more bondage. I am free. It's the same way with your cares. We're not meant to carry burdens. We're supposed to cast our cares upon the Lord. He wants to be your daddy. He wants to be the responsible one. He is supposed to carry them. We're called to be obedient to Him and let Him carry our burdens. And here again, I have to go back to a little statement I said earlier. The only slippery part here is God gives us free will. You have to make a decision to cast your burdens upon Him. It's up to us to relinquish control and cast our burdens upon Him. Doesn't matter what the care is, He wants to carry it for you. You just have to hand it over to Him. And the matrix deal again, is it the red pill or the blue pill? Do I want to be free? And again, do you want to get better or do you want to stay where you are? If you want to get better, then, in the words of our Savior, pick up your mat and walk. Amen? Can we stand? As we sing this song, again, let it dig deep into your soul. I'm not going to call you down. It's up to you to make this decision. I could pray for you the best prayer I ever have, but until you give up control, you're going to continue carrying what you're carrying. It doesn't matter if it's a stale donut or if it's abuse from your childhood. It doesn't matter. Turn it over to the Lord. Amen.
I am free, yeah. No more shackles, no more chains, no more bondage, I am free, yeah. No more shackles, no more chains, no more bondage, I am free. No more chains, no more bondage, I am free. Yeah. No more shackles, no more chains, no more bondage, I am free. Yeah. Sing it again. No more shackles, no more chains, no more bondage, I trying free.